Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the Cipher System rules by Monty Cook Games. This actual play is performed by adults and contains adult themes. We're happy to have you with us on this journey of cosmic wonder. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., which may bear resemblance to entities living from the vast reaches of unknown space, are strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your game master. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I am your game master this evening, Michael Diamond. My pronouns are he, him, and we are back with another episode of Children of the Periphery, our Monty Cook Games Cipher System sci-fi adventure. So we want to thank you for joining us here on the show. And we want to let you know that we're also available on Patreon at The Old Ways Podcast. Patreon.com/The Old Ways Podcast. Promise I'll get it right at some point. You can check us out on YouTube and, of course, follow us on Twitch, The Old Ways Twitch. Twitch.tv/The Old Ways Twitch is where we're found at. And so we are in the missing Fida formation. For those of you who have been listening for a while, he will be, we'll just say, indisposed this episode. Perhaps has something to do with all of that hair removal gel he got into last game. Maybe. But we'll start at the top with our crew introduction. So to my right.
This is Morgan, and I play Captain Amara Castra. Our pronouns are she, her, and Amara is a brash explorer who learns quickly and is quickly learning that this planet isn't all warm and fuzzy.
I don't believe that for a second. To Captain Amara's right.
Hi, this is Rena. I play Tamarisk and Vari. Our pronouns are they, them. And Tamarisk is an empathic speaker who commands mental powers. And last time they picked up what might be a new toy.
And who doesn't like a new toy? And last, but most certainly not least.
Hi, my name is Mare, and I play Cordelia or Ren. Our pronouns are she, her, and Cordelia is a beneficent warrior who wears power armor. And she really told everyone not to touch it. She really wanted them not to touch it, but hey, I guess we're just going to touch it, right?
It seems to be the things have gone that way. Okay, so I recently awarded our crew members with, we'll just say, a treasure trove of XP, and for all their hard work over the past few episodes this season. This will allow them to do some advancement with their characters, and so I would just like them to, we'll go back through introduction order, I'd like them to give you an idea about what they picked up.
All right, so I spent 4 XP to improve healing from trained to specialized.
So, yeah, so you have, on the way to tier 2, you have spent 1 on the advancement path to tier 2. So fantastic. Tamarisk.
So I spent 2 on this path. I upgraded my edge in my intellect to 2. And I upgraded my trained in tasks involving social interaction to specialized.
Fantastic. And Mare.
I spent a total of 8 XP, and I moved myself towards perfection by getting myself a +1 in the edge of my choice. Well, actually, I did this a little bit in reverse. I used the other option, using the Cipher System rulebook to give myself a new ability. That new ability was getting myself improved edge. So now my improved edge is in intellect, which was 0, is now 1. Then used move towards perfection to add that edge there, seeing as, well, she's good at punching things and grappling things, and the power armor does the work there. There are a couple more things about Cordelia that needs her intellect, and we want to try to help her out as much as we can there.
I like that. That's fun. It's fun seeing characters get fleshed out and seeing sort of the initial thoughts about how a character is supposed to advance, and seeing where they go from there. So we'll see, hopefully, these improved abilities in our next episodes. Okay, so we're going to raise the curtain tonight back on the ship, the Periphery, which is still on the planet, having finished up a investigation into some of the things that they saw, these sort of strange bird-like people. They then encountered a very large plant near the beach where the ship was at. And it seems that Fida has been struck by a somewhat caustic gel-like material And when he went to run off to the beach nearby to get to some water and try to get it off of himself, it did do some damage to him. And so for now, he is resting in the med bay aboard the Periphery, as the three of you are going to have to decide on what the next step is. So we'll open the scene on the bridge with the three of you there, sort of looking out the viewport, seeing the beach and some of the other areas that are nearby. And then far, far off in the distance, you can see sort of where it became rocky, where the bird people were.
I'm playing around with that 12-sided object I picked up, just kind of fiddling with it while we're talking.
Okay.
Because it's fascinating, and I don't know what it is, and I like figuring out things when I don't know what they are. So just while we're talking, I'm fiddling around with it.
Cordelia is very much getting into her protector, defender sort of mode, seeing as, one of the lasers did hit the thing that the bird people were trying to fix, and now we've landed within proximity of them, and night seems to be falling. She keeps looking out the viewport almost as if scanning to see if incoming fighters are going to make their way. And she looks to the captain and is like, so does this vessel have any sort of cloaking, any sort of sensors to make us aware if we decide, if we're going to stay here for the night, any sort of something to prevent us from becoming a target of perhaps nocturnal beings that are on this planet?
Yeah, we don't have any cloaking device, but we do have sensors.
Shit, I thought this was the future. It seems to have everything else. You've got like a person who lives inside of the thing. I watched some shows growing up where in the future everything, you could make things invisible. You could like have lasers, which we have. Just like it was wishful thinking, I guess.
There is cloaking. Our ship was not.
Cloaking costs money.
It does.
Or at least it did in where we came from, so you have to have money for fancy things.
Who's charging you?
That's a long story.
Nobody anymore.
Oh, that's a long story you're going to tell me later. Let me add that one to the list. She pulls up like the wrist part of her arm where it would have a view pad and like with one of those tiny styluses adds to the list of things we need to talk about later. And it's getting longer and it has scrolling abilities at this point now. And she just closes the flap shut and puts her hands on her hips, staring at the two of them once more.
Sarcasm will get you everywhere, darling.
Yes. Are we ready to talk about next steps?
I thought I posed mine. Do you guys have other next steps?
Hey, Rakam, is there any way we can power down the ship and just leave necessary systems like life support and sensors?
Sure.
Hopefully that helps us go a little more unnoticed. Do you have any suggestions, Rakam, about how to keep us cloaked?
I think we should get a cloaking device.
Great. Do you know where to find one? We can go pick one up at the nearest store.
I don't, actually. I mean, if we were still in the Third Horizon, you could just go to Coriolis Station and spend just absolute gobs of burr and get one.
Well, we're a long way from home.
He appears holographically on the bridge.
Oh, crap. Cordelia jumps, seeing him just appear. Not going to get used to that.
Apologies. It's, we found it easier if, when we were first getting to know each other, he sort of gestures to the captain and Tamarisk. The visual was very important. Otherwise, I'm just sort of a disembodied voice.
Cordelia's looking him over and just has this moment of just like, so you picked this?
Yes. I was in contact with some very fashion-forward people on Coriolis Station, and they thought this would be something which was pleasing to both the upper crust of society and, the folks who aren't.
You look fabulous, Rakam.
It's the purple.
It is. Really plays off your eyes.
Yeah, Rakam is a very handsome individual. I won't really say man, or I won't use really a gender with him because Rakam doesn't really have one.
He's coding.
Yep. They sort of present however they'd like. So there's some times where Rakam might refer to himself, or he might refer to himself as something else. He's like that. Or sometimes they're like that. That's the best part of being them.
Cordelia still has the jury out on Rakam. Just, that's been probably one of the hardest things for her to overcome within it. But it's just like, okay, so any sorts of defenses, any sort of sensors, notifications in case we are bombarded in the night?
Well, that depends. So if he extends an arm towards Captain Amara, if we go through with the captain's order to power the ship down, then there won't be sensors. Really, they can't run in low power mode. Either they're on or they're not. There are no defensive weaponry that we have that doesn't require a powered system.
Mm-hmm.
We have some very light ballistic weaponry, which is forward firing and highly accurate, also very loud. We have the railgun on top of the ship, which you're familiar with, which can certainly do the job. And then we have a informational weapon. We have something that we term as a meme cannon. And it's really not a weapon per se, as it, and not in the traditional sense, it targets an enemy's information sources, like their computer system, and then sort of fills them with funny messages and pictures to confuse them. Think of it like a computer scrambler, except that its core conceit is that it tells jokes. He smiles. As far as suggestions, I wouldn't want to necessarily... I think that there is a benefit to going back to the Nadir. And out of respect for the Colonel here, I think we should just start calling it the Nadir, because it is what is left. And it'll also be a lot less confusing.
Thank you.
I'm all for clearing up confusion, personally.
Also, if I'm being honest, which I've been programmed to be, Captain, he sort of turns a little bit, like full body towards you. We have to come to an understanding when it comes to the Nadir.
Which is?
That the Colonel should be in charge of the Nadir. And here's why. In the future, we're going to wake some of those colonists. If some of those colonists find out that you're in charge of everything, someone from a completely different time period who they have no connection with, not even a military branch connection with, you are going to incite a riot. Remember that the mission, at least from what I've been able to put together, the mission of the Nadir was to get off Earth and to find a safer place to live. They're going to arrive to a ship which has been, for all intents and purposes, hijacked, modified, and then had 80% of its superstructure removed. And it's God knows where. Right? I think it's best if the situation is taken care of now, rather than later. That's just my advice.
You are always the voice of reason, Rakam. I agree. So Cordelia will captain the Nadir, and I will captain the Periphery, and we will tag team on away missions.
Yes, and if I could make another suggestion, he turns to you, Cordelia. It's not uncommon in several different types of military organizations that the captain or a captain of an important battle group or ship, when they're aboard another ship where there is someone who's in charge, that captain is given the respect title of major. And this comes back to an old Earth understanding that there should never be two captains aboard the same ship.
Mm-hmm.
Because it creates confusion for the crew. There are possibly 1,100 people that in short order will be waking up because there is going to be a resource issue. They're going to need a clear line of authority. Otherwise, they'll make their own. History shows that could be very bad. So there needs to be a same and equal line of respect back to Captain Amara, so that way people of Earth, he sort of not choose that word out, but it's different. It just comes out very differently.
Mm-hmm.
So that they understand that you respect her captaincy. It'll also make sense to them. I say all this, of course, as a preamble to the next problem. And that's the recent signal I got from the Nadir, which is that there is a growing water problem. You see, all of the wondrous technology that keeps the crew in cryostasis requires an awful lot of coolant. That coolant has to cycle. It has to do it every so often. As the coolant cycles, there is a small and almost, in some ways, imperceptible amount of loss because it's not a perfect system. There are no perfect systems. So if we extrapolate for all the math that needs to be done, the basic premise is that we're going to have to find fresh water if we want to keep them in cryostasis.
That's completely fair.
We're going to need to find it very fast.
So we did collect some samples of the water from this planet. So is there a way for us, and then she looks to Rakam, or you to be able to analyze it to see what it would take to purify and make it viable?
There's the medical facility here aboard the Periphery. There's a crude, by comparison, medical bay aboard the Nadir. The technology levels are a little different. It doesn't mean that both couldn't work, but it will take someone running those tests. And, well, the scientist that we did have aboard the Periphery is now in a self-medicated digital coma doing research.
All right, just so I got this straight in my head, because it's been a long day, battling plants, getting Fida got rashes from things that aren't so pleasant. Captain Cordelia will captain, or is she Major Cordelia? I need Major Orin. I'm
Until we have civilians or any other Legionnaires who happen to wake, because it'll be the other Legionnaires and anyone else aboard the Nadir who will want to have some sort of structure that exists. You could just call me Cordelia for now, until we get on to the Nadir. And if it is Captain, Colonel, Lieutenant Colonel, we'll just kind of go with it there. I really think, and she's just she raises her gauntleted hands in the air, just kind of like, I just kind of think, until I see another Legionnaire, we can just do this. As long as, and she's still kind of looking to Rakam, also kind of to it, listen, ranks are ranks among my peers. And she just kind of still gestures. She's grown to know this crew, but are you suggesting that our two vessels then form a fleet, and that then in this situation, you would have Captain Amara would be the Commodore, essentially, of this fleet?
It's possible, but the major title is more when Captain Amara is aboard the Nadir, and that's only when there are folks who are going to be nearby listening who might care.
Right, yeah. I'm not writing this down.
Yeah, it's more for your fellow Legionnaire friends.
Gotcha, okay.
And, of course, Colonel, the thing that's important about it all is the more concerning part I have is that some of your Legionnaire fellows, while they may be as vibrant and as passionate about what they do for the people, they may be a little rigid, maybe a little less flexible about the rules. And I want to make sure that the crew does not get outnumbered and then outvoted and into a situation where we're dealing with unfriendly people who just woke up out of cryostasis and find out that their world is totally changed and different and not in the way they were hoping.
Relatable. I understand. Okay. So essentially provide a structure so that then as people begin to awake, the other stresses that are going to come, like the resources, don't become as much of an issue as them deciding to overthrow the definitely not Legionnaire, definitely not military leadership that is now on this vessel as well. I can help soothe that to an extent. That being said, we're gonna have to just, we're gonna have to probably come up, I don't want to say cover story, but you saw my assumptions as I woke up, some of which still remain glances to the other two, unresolved.
It's why you being there, especially when another member of the Legion wakes up, will be critically important. You didn't have anyone who looked like you, who was in uniform like you. And so you were searching for, well, I would assume, structure. You will provide that structure to people as they wake up. And hopefully we can go through the database records and wake the right people up at the right time.
That's a good point. That'll be our first order of business once we return to the Nadir, would be to go through the rosters and just see what's there. All right. Sounds like a plan. She claps her gauntlets together. Great. Are we going to try to get out of here before those bird people figure out it was us that blew up their houses, or?
Yes. So let's go back to the Nadir, and you said there's a water problem happening or impending. It's impending.
Yes. You rise up, off maneuvering thrusters, off the planet's surface, and you begin a low and seemingly careful flight up and then out. And breaking back into space from atmosphere is a wonderful feeling for a ton of different reasons, right? So the Periphery has internal dampers that kick in. It has sort of smaller gravimetric devices along the hull, which sort of keep you planted. But that's only after they are sensed that they are going to be in need, as to not cause you physical problems when you're trying to move around in atmosphere. So there is like a 3 to maybe 5 second delay in that. And so all of you, if you're not strapped into your chairs when you take off, as you get into actually open space, there's a little floaty sensation before you sort of feel yourself come back to rest and feel something close to gravity. I wouldn't say it's full gravity. I would say it's more like 0.8. So it's easier to move around the ship because you can be just slightly weightless. The Nadir waits impatiently where it was at when you found it and where you took off from it. So there's no issue there. There's no roll for flying back in. You know exactly where you're going, and that is simple enough to accomplish. So the next scene sort of opens with the three of you getting off the Periphery and onto the Nadir in the docking bay. So we have some potential things in front of us for the group. I'll just list them very carefully. 1 would be checking out what the water issue is. 2 might be going through the data records. And then 3 might be anything or else that you might want to do. Say maybe Tamarisk is very interested in playing with their new bauble and they want to see what it might do.
Cordelia, do you want to dig through the data records and I can go check out the water issue?
Absolutely. Let's just make sure we stay on communications in case anything seems urgent, like if there's a big bad leak, like anything explodes. Yeah, if something blows up, let me know, okay?
Yeah, hopefully I can tell you before it blows up and not after it blows up or while it's blowing up. But yes, let's keep in contact. And then Tamarisk, I feel like you have something you want to play with.
I always have things to play with, Captain. But in this case, yes.
And then Rakam, can you keep an eye on Fida in the med bay, please?
Yes, Captain.
Thank you. Let me know if anything changes with his vitals.
Of course.
Thank you. And then I will I'll find a computer in a hallway to pull up a map and see where the water issue is. I'm assuming there's probably a sensor going off, or?
Yeah, there is a single sensor on one sort of inner edge of one of the large cryo storage spaces. So there's just a little one going off. And then as you get back through some of the information, you realize that there might be a couple of them sporadically sort of spaced around the Nadir here that are giving you error messages. And it's basically like, for you right now, it is a LED on a board that shows a number And that number is essentially a fault, meaning that the device is showing that it's faulty.
Yeah, I go over comms. Hey, Cordelia,
Yep.
do you have any? Do you know where you might keep any extra like equipment or supplies? If something faulty.
Would I know this?
Probably not. Probably left to ship's engineers.
She would probably go, I don't know, as she's scrolling through. I imagine she's doing the same thing scrolling through. She's like, I mean, I could look for a quartermaster to wake up, but I don't really know. In fact, I don't know what part of the ship that would be on, or if that part of the ship is still attached.
Yeah, good point. Let's not wake anybody up. So I'll go back to one of the computers and kind of search to see. There's got the map of an equipment closet, and there's an IDF closet somewhere with all the.
There probably are. There are probably several IDF closets. Yeah, so this is actually, I guess it's a good question. Do you have any skills related to engineering or technical repair work or?
Well, I'm trained in tests related to figuring out how to solve problems.
Okay, I can dig on that. So to determine a problem like this, I'm going to say that the difficulty is probably 5.
So if I'm trained in the task to figuring out, does that lower it to 4 then?
It sure does.
All right. And then I will spend an effort to lower it again. 3. So that'll put me, I have to do 9 or above.
Yep.
And it's an intellect task.
So if you're going to spend pool points, then.
Okay. So then I will spend 3 pool points to lower it again to 2. So I have to get a 6 or better.
Yes, you do.
All right. Let's rock this. Watch me fail. I'll get a 1. That'd be awesome.
It would be.
It would be. I got a 6. Woohoo!
So over the period of about 2 hours, you learn some things. You learn what a PLC is. Now, for those of you who might be not yet educated in the technical part of field that would deal with PLCs, I will just tell you that there are these apparatuses that exist in larger buildings and structures called programmable logic controllers. Think of it as a computer that is programmed, and there are many, many wires that go to it. And there is a program that controls what happens to relays, which open and close or provide water or power to certain things at certain times. And so you get into the plans of one of the PLCs aboard the Nadir. And it is enormous. It has more than probably 10,000 points of data. And so every one of those data points is programmed to do a specific thing. And some of those data points are programmed to do things at a specific time of day. And you get into the water programming for the cryo control module. And this is after like racking your brain and probably like, rolling up the mental sleeves and really trying to learn this stuff. And then like a half an hour of crying and just all sorts of stuff to expend all that mental energy and effort that you do. But the cool part is that you figure out that the errors are not faulty sensors. So the sensors do seem to test true, which is good. It does alleviate, after testing, it alleviates the light. So you don't get the light error message, but you do see in that sort of truncated portion of data that comes out as a readout to you that the system is not holding the same percentage of water as it did when you arrived, which is concerning. Because if it can't hold a certain percentage of water, it doesn't have enough flow in the tanks to keep the cryo cool. And if the cryo tanks can't stay cool, they will go into an automatic rise. That means that people will just automatically begin coming out of cryo. And that might not be what you want. So there are a couple ways to alleviate this problem. One would be to find clean water to be able to add back into the system to basically keep it topped off. Now, that could become a reoccurring issue, right? That's the sort of unknown there. The other thing would be to ease the stress on the system by, waking people up out of cryo so it has less coolant that it needs. But that's your successful test. That's what you get.
Awesome. And we brought back water samples from the planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who did that? Fida? Did he grab those?
Yes, I believe so.
All right. So then I will, because we need fresh water, I will go back to the Periphery and find that sample and have Rakam help me run scans on it. Science is not my thing.
That's okay. So, Cordelia, you are doing what? Are you checking out records?
Yeah, Cordelia's looking at the ship's manifest to see if there is any sort of kind of seeing who's on the ship. Was there any sort of organization for them? Was there any sort of like the scientists were taking a nap over here, the farmers are taking a nap over here, civilians are here, leadership of any sorts here? She's just trying to see what there is in addition to like, are there, if on a ship's manifest, are there numbers or pods or sections that are missing potentially from the part of the nadir that is not attached to the nadir anymore?
Yeah, so the answer is a little bit convoluted, but to get clarity on it, to get a full research of the records in proper fashion, it's going to be a difficulty 3 task for you.
Would I be able to use my data jack as a way to maybe fast sort through this as a way to lower the difficulty?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so I'd like to use that. That's going to cost me 1 intellect point. That way, through the computer access, I can sort of pull these things up, move things, like kind of organize them the way you would files in order to see that. And that should bring it down to a 2.
Yeah, that'll do it.
All right. 2 is better than 3 with these rolls. Cool, that's an 11.
Okay. So again, there's a little bit of a time sink here. It takes you about an hour to sort through the records to get a really good view. And the interesting fact that you find is that based on the information you have, the ship is not cordoned off into, say, departments or duties for the most part, outside of leadership. The ship is portioned off into families. So families are next to one another. And from that, outside of the family portion, it goes to the military, and then it goes to leadership. So you really have 3 different and distinct castes of people who are here. And your findings are the only thing that separates someone from being either with their family is whether or not they're in the military or whether or not they're in leadership. So if they're not in either one of those categories, they're with their family like they would normally be. Yeah, that takes about an hour. And as far as what departments are there, there's probably a smattering of just about everybody. So when they did the split into the 4 bulbs that you were used to seeing on this massive superstructure, they didn't put leadership into any one section. It was split out amongst all of them, as for everything. So the 1,100 or so people that you have on the ship are, well, they're from the entire diaspora. So you have elements of everybody.
Are there any names or particular collections that remain on the same bulb? Like, I don't know. I don't know if these would be organized in order of like, here's the leadership, and then here's the military, and then here's the families and whatnot, as well as their occupations on here. But are there any particular noted or flagged items in this bulb?
Yeah, there are. I'm going to roll a die. It's fun for me and hopefully fun for everybody. So of the 1,100 or so people that you have, you see amongst the records there are about 40 legionnaires.
Okay.
All various ranks.
Any ranks higher than mine?
Yes.
Ah.
Yep, there are ranks higher than yours.
So 40 legionnaires. Any of the leadership in particular, like, are these like political leaders? Are these like scientific leaders? Like, what are Nobel Peace Prize winners? Like,
yeah, the first, most leadership group is all political. I mean, there are members of the scientific field who are, well within, their scope of being experts and award winners, but they are not part of the leadership committee, the committee and council that comes together to to lead the Nadir off is sort of plucked from mostly political people. You would also be aware that there are members of the Legionnaires who also are a part of the leadership council. They sort of act as advisors. It also gives them, leadership gives them the power to enact emergency powers if necessary. So like, if the ship were to ever come under attack by another force, the Legionnaires could take control of the ship and they could get the people to safety. They wouldn't have to ask.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. She documents all of this so that she can bring it back.
Okay, cool. And then Tamarisk, I wonder where you go to play with your new toy.
I think I go back to my quarters on the Periphery because it's quiet. It's also a very familiar space, which is comforting for me ever since we popped out in this strange new world. So I think I go back to my quarters.
You go back to your quarters. As you get back there, you see that this sort of 12-sided box has a varying number of seams to it. All along each of the faces, you could make out that there are almost like zipper teeth that run, but you don't see any way to open it per se. There's no like one zipper, key that runs the whole gambit of the device. And it's definitely something that you'll have to sort of crack into.
Well, I'm definitely going to spend some time with it. So I'm going to clear my mind, do some meditation first, just to get rid of all of the stress and the adrenaline and everything from being down on the planet and fighting that weird plant thing and Fida and all of that. Just get all of that out of my head, emotionally regulate myself, and then I'm going to devote my willpower and my brain to trying to figure this thing out.
Okay. So what I'll have you do for me is I'm going to have you make me a challenge rating 7 test.
Ooh.
It's based off the cipher level. And this is something that is an intellect-based test to, quote, figure out. You can utilize any and all avenues in attempts to reduce the number, just like any other test.
So I have an edge of 2 in intellect.
Okay. So if you're going to spend for effort that costs you a point of intellect.
Okay, so I'm going to spend 1. So that reduces it by 1, so it's a 6 now.
Yep.
And don't think I have really anything else because most of my skills and things are involved in emotion and speaking and social interaction.
That's true, they are. You could attempt to ask someone for assistance. So you could get the assistance of a member of the crew.
Is Rakam still around?
And the captain ordered Rakam to watch over Fida, but you're in the Periphery, so it stands to reason that you could potentially reach out.
If Rakam's mostly focusing on the medbay, I will go to the medbay to talk to Rakam if I need to and get him to help me with figuring out my toy here.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, you engage Rakam and he sort of like looks at it and tries to like get a good idea of what it is. And he said, where did you find it?
On the planet with the plant that did that. Just sort of gesture at Fida.
Ooh, and you touched it?
Why not?
He gestures at Fida. Didn't anyone tell you not to touch things?
They may have on occasion, but I was never very good at orders.
He cocks an eyebrow. Well,
I give them.
Oh, I see. Well, then give yourself an order to figure it out. He shrugs. I don't know. Maybe, he looks around the med bay. Maybe if we pick a point on it and take a couple of medical tools, maybe in some forceps, we can peel it back like a piece of fruit.
Worth a shot?
He walks over and then gestures to them. Because of course he can't pick them up.
Yep. So I will take his advice. Does that reduce my difficulty by 1?
It does. It's an asset. You have an asset now. Okay. 5 is probably where you're at.
Yeah, that's as good as I'm going to get, I think. So I need a 15 or higher, and I rolled a 16.
Okay. So you begin very carefully peeling back just the edge of what look like ceramic teeth that bind this side together. And by teeth, I mean like zipper teeth, not like actual teeth. It's important to qualify that. You peel it back, and once you get just the tiniest bit of it open, you see that there is a bright light inside of it. And it sort of shifts, like the entire object moves a little bit.
Does it look anything at all like the sentient ball of lightning we ran across earlier?
It does not. You actually can't really get a good look at what it is because you don't really have enough of it open.
Well, I'm going to open it further, if I can. Just try and pull on it very slowly.
You pull on it very, very slowly, and it peels back, and you see the brightness is coming from what looks like a stone. And as you peel it back, you see that stone is attached to a piece of metal, a band of metal that wraps in this semicircle space. And then on the back of it, there is this something that's probably a good 8 or so inches that's flat and looks metallic, but is sort of flipped down, almost as if it's on. It appears to be on some sort of hinge, which could move.
Side glance at Rakam, see if he's showing any dismay, interest, or warning signs.
He looks really puzzled. What is that?
That's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
Okay. He sort of looks at it, and then he shimmers for a second, and then you see a couple of other machines come on in the medical bay. It's putting out an awful lot of power. Like a lot.
Interesting. Gonna poke at it a little bit more then.
You physically poke at it. The band that this sort of faceted gem is attached to feels a little metallic. It's some type of metal. It's hard. It's rigid. The back end of this, I guess, flap that's on the back of it that's pointed down doesn't feel metallic. It feels more ceramic. It's also like there's some sort of sheen on it, like a coloring. It looks like a funny helmet, Rakam says.
Are you suggesting I put it on, Rakam?
I am not suggesting that you put it on, he says sort of flatly.
I'm teasing, darling. I'm teasing.
I don't know. Maybe it's a mind control device.
Wouldn't that be fun?
It certainly could. I mean, you have to put it on to find out.
Okay, now you're suggesting.
I am simply offering one possible suggestion.
No one else is around. What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing. I mean, you were in the medical bay.
It's true. It's the best possible place to be, to try something out. And you're here.
Right. He sort of gestures like, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I'm going to try it.
Okay. You pick it up, this, what looks like more of a circlet that has a closed back to it. And then this, I'll say that the piece that comes off of the back of it and then goes straight down that's on that hinge is probably about 2.5 inches wide. It's probably about 8 to maybe 10 inches long. It's thin. Put it on. When you put it on, you get an invasive series of thoughts and images that stab into your brain. The back end of that circlet, the flap, goes from being down to up at like a 45-degree angle. And there's a sort of keening sound in your ear, just the right ear. And you get this image of the planet. You see what looks like a city, some type of colonized space on the planet. And you see massive machines, 60, 80 meters tall, that are in the distance. And they seem to be silently floating nearby. They're not humanoid looking at all. One looks kind of like a strange crab, and the other looks like maybe a cricket. And they float in the distance beyond this city. And there are beings there. Beings that remind you of Oni. You can see them up close now. Your vision shifts forward rather violently. And you can hear them sort of talking back and forth. You've been able to make out that language, having chatted with Oni just very quickly. And they sound terrified. They're looking up at the sky and these massive machines. And you watch as these machines begin to animate. And they begin moving. And they move off down into the water. The waves crash and spill over the structures, and the crab moves, lumbers down into the seawater. And it gets just far enough where it settles itself into the sand and the water, and then just sinks deeper and deeper and deeper until it's out of sight. The insectoid one walks along the beach, plodding and like churning up huge billets of sand and huge holes for the water from the ocean to eventually fill. And it wanders off until you lose sight of it. And the fear isn't in the citizens here, does not seem to be based on it being them being attacked. They fear their protectors leaving. And the sky moments thereafter is filled with a wave of bird people, waves of them sailing down into the city. And they come like in flights of 10, 15, 20. And there is a protracted fight between the people that you met, mental speakers that you met. There's no talk from them. They don't announce anything. They fight without speaking. And they seem to engage these avian people with the power of their mind. And so like bird people start falling out of the sky, and there's strange laser blasts. Day turns into night, and then it cycles forward a few more times. The city lies in ruins. All of the blue-skinned people are gone. There are carcasses of the avian people here. Many. But it seems like they've been gone a very long time. The buildings also look pretty damaged. And then you see a young blue-skinned creature, no taller than a meter at best. And you see it rushing to pack what look like consumables into a backpack. And it runs off into an opening. You sort of follow it along this path until it gets to a cave opening. And you see other blue-skinned beings in that cave. And it rushes back in. And then you are flat on your back, one of the two medical beds here. And Rakam is like looking you over.
Fascinating. It worked.
What worked?
I saw things, Rakam, a vision. It was amazing. Just my whole face lights up.
You made the strangest series of noises I've ever heard you make. I mean, you almost woke Fida and he's medicated. It was like you were in a fight.
I was seeing a fight. Experiencing almost telepathically. That was probably it.
All right, well, he gestures up to the ceiling. I had the medical assistant remove it from your head.
Can I have it back, please?
Hey, I don't make the rules here. That's the captain's job. I think at the very least you should tell the captain about it.
Oh, of course I'm going to. Gotta talk about it with someone.
Oh, I put some, I had the med doc put some ointment on your head. There seems to be some, marking.
I look in the nearest reflective surface.
You have like a band of like spots now that run across the top of your forehead.
Wrinkle my nose a bit. Oh, well, that's unpleasant.
I'm sure foundation concealer, you'll be fine. He goes back over to Fida.
So I'll go find the captain then.
Yay, we regroup back on the bridge after people have their findings.
Yeah, I was coming to test the water that Fida had picked up, So I enter and almost run into Tamarisk as we go into the bridge. And Tamarisk, I didn't realize you were still on the ship. How goes it?
I'm back on the ship, and I'm holding the circlet, whatever it is, and just looking very energetic, very enthusiastic, far more than my normal sort of calm, reserved demeanor. Oh, I have so many things to tell you.
Oh, they go right ahead.
Oh, we should probably wait for Cordelia so I don't have to repeat myself.
Over here. And she's like,
Oh, there you are. I hold up the circlet. So do you remember that strange 12-sided sort of box thing? That's this.
it doesn't look like a box.
I think I figured it out. No, it doesn't. Lots of things don't look like other things. We've discovered that so far. So we figured it out, and it turns into this, and I put it on to see what it would do.
You did what?
It looked like something you wear, so I put it on.
Uh-huh. Cordelia's pinching the bridge of her nose. Yeah, but how'd that go?
Oh, wonderfully, I think. I had the most incredible vision, and I think it's a vision of what actually happened, and I explained the whole thing to them in very vivid detail, gesticulating and getting really excited about it.
Okay, well, before you put that back on again, let's have a conversation about that. Well, it looks like our friend that popped on board to the nadir was the species that got overtaken by the bird avian creatures that are down on the planet now. Oh, it's too bad. I wish we could talk to him again, or them again.
They have mental powers, just interesting mental powers. I need to learn more about this. I hope we can find them.
Do you believe this device belongs to their kind, then?
I mean, it's clearly not from the bird people. It was there before.
So is this a sort of tome, kind of like a documenting thing, or were you like a book, but do you wear on your head?
Hadn't considered that. It could be a book, yes. It's the way they write could be in series of images and mental connections.
So it's a historical document.
So it's like a visual book that you wear on your head.
And that's one way of describing it, I think.
Do we notice the marks on Tamarisk's head?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Did it hurt when you read it?
Well, Rakam said I made some strange noises, but I didn't feel anything. Just emotions from what I was seeing.
So
you experience what they experience. So it like interfaces to you? That's scary.
Something like that? Scary. No, it's marvelous. We can learn so much. I can learn about these people and understand more. And it's so much easier than just reading words on a page.
So if this thing is psionic of some sort and it powered on, I'm assuming, in order to transmit this info to you, maybe it's a book. What if it's linked to something else as well? Like a digital, like checking out a book from a library. And then she pauses. You do know what a library is, right?
Yes, we have libraries. I'm very familiar with them.
Okay, I don't know. It's a couple 100 years will do that to you. I think a lot of things have changed.
So it could be a telepathic library. So would that mean it's connected to one individual person? Or could it be a network? Just the possibilities are endless.
So did it show you what you wanted to see? As in, like, you wanted to know the history of the planet and the people? Like, that's something we wanted to know. So if you put it back on and thought about another question, don't put it on.
It's already halfway up to their forehead.
Would it give you a different answer? Because, we could use a fresh water source at this point. Our ship, the Nadir, is having some issues. It's not keeping the percentage of water that we need to maintain your people to stay in cryo. So if we want to stop people from waking up, and while Tamarisk's new toy is remarkable, and I'd love to see what Rakam says with a scan or whatnot. The water issue is very critical as well.
Right. And we do still have about 1,100 souls that are aboard this vessel, apart from us. I was able to look through the rosters. It seems that everyone who was on this colony ship was grouped by families. And we have somewhere around 40 Legionnaires that would be on board, other political leadership that's there. But I'm with you. I think until we resolve any of our resource issues, we need to keep everyone on ice. So water would be the best move for us.
And Fida picked up that sample while we were on the planet. It was coined actually to have Rakam analyze that.
Hey, yeah, Rakam, did you find anything?
Yeah, had you dropped off the sample yet? Captain, I thought that's what you were going to do, right?
That's what I was going to go grab out of Fida's pack and go drop it off. So I hadn't done that yet.
Gotcha, cool.
But Tamarisk, I think that's really good information that we got about the original inhabitants of the planet. Maybe they need our help. We could help them in exchange for some fresh water.
If you just go ahead and lay the sample down, I'll start.
I suppose. I go get it out of Fida's pack and go lay it on one of the sensor pads.
Okay. So in the spirit of not rolling any dice, I'm going to have you, Captain, make this roll. You'll roll with it'll be a difficulty 4 task. It'll be assisted by the ship and the ship's ability to sort of discern what things are. So you have a equipment assist, and then you can sort of go from there. This is considered a new scene for spending of effort.
Cool. So it puts me at a 3 with the ship assist, and then I will spend my effort to lower it to a 2.
Cool.
And that's it. Let's do it. So hopefully I get a higher than a 6 this time.
Let's hope.
All right. I got a 3.
Ooh, fantastic.
But can I spend an XP to reroll?
I would prefer to spend a hand of fate for Captain Amara and just allow that to be successful.
Thank you, Patreon, for helping me out.
Okay. So after some time, the news you get back from the computer is not great. The amount of particulates and contaminants, at least that the ship can find, mean that this water is not drinkable. Worse than that, it is likely something which the Periphery could try to purify based on a couple of different processes, but it can't guarantee that it would be good for any sort of human consumption. And so you're going to have to find a cleaner water source.
Well, that's terribly disappointing. I go back to the bridge and I report my news to Tamarisk and Cordelia about how we really need Fida to wake up. Because I'm not a scientist or engineer.
I think that we'll get a chance to talk to Fida next episode, because I'm going to call our episode to a close here. We've had a lot of fun today. I'm playing with new toys and researching the ship and then figuring out everybody's rank and all sorts of different things. With the fun to come, we will see you next time. So thank you and good night.